You are lying in the same position your ancestors used 300,000 years ago. Same posture, same brain waves, same biological need. But they were doing it 60 feet off the ground, in total darkness, while something with claws circled below and waited for them to stop moving. Tonight, when you close your eyes, you will do something your ancestors had to earn with hours of preparation, precise engineering, and a level of environmental awareness that modern humans have completely lost. Most people never think about this. They should. Because the story of where humans slept before houses existed is not a story about primitive survival. It is a story about the most sophisticated nighttime engineering system ever developed, and almost nobody knows it existed. Let's start with what that darkness actually felt like. Not a power outage, not a camping trip. We are talking about open African savanna, 200,000 years ago, on a moonless night so black that your hand disappears 6 inches from your face. In that darkness, leopards move in complete silence. No warning, no sound, until impact. Hyenas track the sound of slow, deepening breathing from 300 feet away. A sleeping human on the ground is not a person. It is a stationary, warm, unaware meal. A modern human placed in that environment tonight. No fire, no elevated platform, no ancestral knowledge. Would have a life expectancy measured in hours, not days. The image you have been given of early humans simply lying down wherever they stopped walking is not just wrong. It is the opposite of what actually happened. Here is the first thing science got completely wrong. At Sibudu Cave in South Africa, 77,000 years ago, archaeologists made a discovery so unexpected it was published in Science magazine as a landmark find. Bedding. Not scattered leaves. Engineered sleeping platforms, up to 12 inches thick, built from a specific plant. River sedge containing natural chemical compounds that are toxic to mosquitoes, ticks, and mites. Your ancestors were not just building a soft place to lie down, they were building a pest control system, a moisture barrier, and a thermal insulator simultaneously. This was pharmaceutical engineering 77,000 years before the first mattress patent. But the ground was never the primary option. Here is the visual that researchers did not expect. Every night for hundreds of thousands of years, your ancestors went up. Chimpanzees, our closest living relatives, sharing 98.7% of our DNA, build fresh sleeping platforms in trees every single night. New construction. Every night. 30 to 60 feet above the ground, in under 5 minutes, selecting specific branch angles, testing structural integrity before lying down, orienting the platform relative to wind direction. Analysis of early human skeletal structure confirms that our ancestors maintained full tree climbing ability far longer into the evolutionary timeline than researchers previously believed. Picture this. An entire family, 60 feet in the air, in platforms built that afternoon, fire burning below as a deterrent, the canopy swaying slightly, total darkness below, the sounds of the savannah rising from underneath them all night long. That is where your ancestors slept. That is the bed you evolved from. Now here is the part that changes everything you think you know about sleep itself. You have been told that 8 continuous hours is the natural human sleep pattern. It is not. It has never been. Psychiatrist Thomas Vare ran a landmark experiment in 1992. He removed all artificial light from volunteers for 1 month. Every single participant, without exception, stopped sleeping in one long block. They shifted to 2 phases, 4 hours of sleep, then a quiet, alert waking period of 1 to 2 hours, then 4 more hours until dawn. No one told them to do this. No one suggested it. It emerged automatically, identically from every participant. This is the factory default human sleep program, the one your ancestors ran every single night for 300,000 years. The reason most modern people cannot sleep through the night is not anxiety, not stress, not screens. It is an ancient biological clock that never received the update. You wake at 2 a.m. and lie there frustrated because your brain is running 300,000-year-old software in a world that changed too fast for evolution to follow. Here is where it gets genuinely extraordinary. Fire did not just provide warmth. Fire restructured the entire human night in a way that had never existed before in the history of life on Earth. Anthropologist David Sampson studied traditional hunter-gatherer populations, the Hadza of Tanzania, still living close to the ancestral pattern. What he found overturned decades of assumptions. These groups do not sleep at sunset. They remain awake around fire for 2 to 3 hours after dark, talking. And the content of those conversations, documented by anthropologist Polly Wiesner across years of fieldwork, was not practical. It was not logistics or hunting plans. At night around fire, 81% of all conversation was stories, myths, histories, moral lessons wrapped in narrative. The campfire was not just heating technology, it was the original classroom, the original theater, the original internet. A controlled light source that created a protected social space where knowledge could be transmitted in the dark while everything dangerous stayed outside the circle of light. The stories you tell your children at night are the direct biological descendants of lessons told in firelight on a savanna 200,000 years ago, and the sleeping groups themselves were engineered. Paleoanthropologist David Reichland's research on the Hadza reveals a detail so precise it reads like military planning. Sleeping group composition shifted based on seasonal threat levels. During high-risk periods, entire camps consolidated into tight clusters. Lighter sleepers, those whose sleep architecture kept them closer to wakefulness, positioned automatically at the perimeter. Deeper sleepers protected at the center, infants and elderly at the thermal core of the group. This was not accidental. This was a coordinated, socially negotiated, nightly defense system, a human structure that served as both alarm network and thermal regulation simultaneously. Your instinct to feel safer sleeping next to someone you trust is not sentiment. It is a survival algorithm that kept your entire bloodline alive through 300,000 years of open-air nights. The physical preparation started hours before dark. Site selection completed before sunset. Platform or bedding construction in the late afternoon light. Fire placement calculated relative to wind direction and the positions where bodies would lie. Threat assessment of the surrounding terrain. This was not reactive. This was a daily operational schedule with sleep as its most critical deliverable. And it worked. Analysis of skeletal remains from this period shows almost no evidence of the chronic spinal degeneration that affects the majority of modern adults. Sleeping on engineered natural platforms, in body positions shaped by hundreds of thousands of years of musculoskeletal adaptation, produced spines that lasted a lifetime of extreme physical labor without breaking down. Orthopedic researchers studying ancestral sleep postures have found that the lateral, semi-supported positions most natural to platform sleeping align the human spine in ways that the modern mattress industry has spent billions trying to replicate and still has not fully achieved. here is what most people never hear. At the end of the Pleistocene, as permanent structures became possible, the entire nighttime knowledge system was abandoned in a few thousand years. Not lost to disaster, just gradually made unnecessary. The site selection, the platform construction, the group positioning, the fire management, the two-phase sleep cycle dissolved. Modern sleep medicine has spent a century diagnosing the consequences. Sleep clinics now incorporate ancestral sleep architecture directly, temperature cycling through the night, biphasic scheduling protocols, strict darkness therapy. These are not new innovations. They are reconstructions of behaviors your ancestors performed automatically every night for 300,000 years. We abandoned the knowledge, then spent 100 years of science rebuilding it, and found our ancestors had already solved it perfectly with grass, fire, and 60 feet of elevation. Go back to your bed. Tonight, when you lie down, you are performing an act that required more preparation, more engineering, and more coordinated human effort than almost anything else your ancestors did. Every safe night cost them hours. Every morning required that the entire system had worked, the platform had held, the fire had burned, the perimeter had held, the biological alarm network had not triggered. The fact that you are here, reading this, means every single one of those nights succeeded. Thousands of generations, hundreds of thousands of years. Not one failure in your direct bloodline. The exhaustion you feel when you finally collapse into that mattress tonight is the same exhaustion they felt climbing into the canopy. The relief of one more day survived, one more night engineered, one more morning earned. You did not invent the need for sleep. You inherited the solution to it. From the most vigilant, most ingenious, most quietly extraordinary engineers who ever existed, who had nothing but darkness, danger, and the absolute refusal to be taken in the night. Close your eyes tonight and understand, maybe for the first time, how extraordinary it is to feel safe enough to stop watching.